I've had 45 of my students ask me, what skills does every consultant need? These are the three skills every consultant needs to have. So, what skills do consultants need to have? Now, for context, they do need to know PowerPoint, analysis and research, and upselling, but oftentimes they need a lot more skills. At the end of the day, a consultant is someone who solves problems, builds mock-up solutions, and that can be anything. You can possibly have to work with Zapier, um, which is like automation software. You could have to work with Excel and not just like the kind of Excel you did in school, but like really good Excel, like big macros. You might even have to create full end software. You might have to do like research papers, which are also considered white papers. And so there's a lot of skills that a consultant might have. Now I'll go over PowerPoint, research and analysis, and selling because I believe those are the most important ones that every consultant needs, regardless of if you're a management consultant, strategy consultant, or technology consultant. I go into these later in my like course, which I help a lot of students break into consulting. But um, the reason I actually made this video is a lot of my students come up to me and they're like, "What skills do I need to learn?" Like either they're last year in college or they've had some experience in the workforce, and they end up like getting a little overburdened by all these different skills. I will say before I go into any of this that you as a consultant, your job is to learn really, really quickly. And I cover how to do that in one of my videos, which for free on YouTube. But the job is that like the client hired you because you have spare time and they're paying you for your spare time. And so, yes, you're like employed to do this, but in the way the client sees it, it's spare time. And so you want to make sure that you can pick up any skill very quickly, or at least like use like ChatGPT, use Cloud, do whatever your firm allows you to pick up the skill quickly. Oftentimes, they'll even like give you courses for free, so you can make your life a lot easier. Additionally, uh, these skills are what are going to help you the most. So if you learn these, you can pretty much skate by and be like a general consultant in many ways. So we have PowerPoint, which is how you're going to um, sell an idea, which is like, hey, you guys should do this or do that. It's going to be needing to be pretty. It's going to need storyboarding, which is like keep people's interest as you go across how you built this project out, why they need to do it, what their future looks like. And it needs to be quick to read. Now, I covered this earlier as well, but I think PowerPoint was probably the skill that I had to learn as an entry level consultant the absolute most. And I had some quick tricks that I used to make sure like I got my PowerPoints done really quickly. Oftentimes, like a partner will make you re-edit your PowerPoint. Like I think I've had one do it like actually 15 to 20 times within a day. But your if you can make your first draft really quickly, you'll stand out. Plus, like the grunt work, it's going to always be there. You might as well get like the actual like the brain power work to get done quickly. Then there's research and analysis, which is where research is going to be like qualitative, quantitative in this case. I also go over primary and secondary in another video. But analysis is where you start using your brain. It's like where you go, hey, like I spent, either 22 years or 40 years or whatever amount of years using my brain. I'm sure I can solve this one problem too. And then the last part is selling, and this is so you can keep your job. You're always selling something. You're selling yourself either by saying like, "Hey, I'm a great consultant," or you're selling your future project, or you're selling yourself to a partner. Everyone does this in some form or another. It's good to know like the way to do it. So let's go into PowerPoint. Explain your thoughts, storyboard. Now, I loved when I became partner and even as project manager, because the senior manager above me like was really nice to me, so he would let me do anything, would be to like put together one graph slides that explained like this is how it's either working or this is how the market is headed, and then just have a conversation with the client. But oftentimes you're going to want to explain your thoughts in terms of ideas, research, graphs, concepts like deep concepts like quantum computing, some even. And so you're going to want to explain your thoughts clearly and succinctly. I hope I spelled that right. Yeah, I didn't. So you're going to want to make sure that you basically write at an eighth grade or lower language, and you can use Hemingway, I think, app to figure out if your writing is too flourish. And often actually people learn in high school or middle school that they have to use big words, long sentences. But in reality, most people cannot understand that. At least they have to use too much of their brain to understand that. And you don't want your client to like confuse how much work you did because they're spending too much time trying to figure out what you said. So make your language very simple. Eighth grade is as high as you can go, and make sure that beyond that you're as simple as possible. Additionally, oftentimes there will be stakeholders, which are like executives like the CEO, the CFO, or the board members that will not be part of the um, like calls or the meetings in person that you're doing the PowerPoints, and they'll look at the PowerPoints later. And so you want to make sure that if you, I mean, a company usually has their standard of how they make PowerPoints, but a way I liked it was this would be the title of the slide main components. So this would be like all the boxes, like the circles and all that stuff. And then it would be a kicker, which would be like TLDR. If you ever use like Reddit, you probably know that term. But it's like this is just like a quick summary of what I've covered. This is the title of what this slide is going to cover. So someone like an executive can read the title, the TLDR, and skip through most of the slides to only focus on the slides that they care about. Because oftentimes the project that comes to you, the CEO might only care for a tenth of it, the manager might care for 30%, the consultants might care for like all of it. But and the direct report client might care for the 100% of the like the PowerPoint as well. But you want the CEO, the person that really, the buck ends at, to just be able to look at the slides that matter to them and only read those main components. And lastly, you want a storyboard. So oftentimes we've been taught that you should go like, hey, this is how things started and this is how things went. But in consulting, you want to sell the solution first. So you want to say, this is the solution. Um, and then you can also have, like you can have like what is the big number associated with it. So I used to say like big number would be like the revenue target or what the revenue has already been made from this mock-up. And then you want to from there go on to explaining, how you did it and then future implications. So let's actually make sure I'm not messing with this too much. How you did it. And so the reason this is like set up this way is because at the end of the day, as a consultant, you're constantly selling like why you were hired in the first place. You want to make sure that they feel happy and excited to work with you because as a consultant, you're trying to get the future product to come to you as well, like the future projects in any capacity. And a simple like acronym to remember this by is ADA. This is used by copywriters a ton, but copywriters are just great sellers, so it's great to learn from them even as a consultant. And that's going to be as simple as attention. So this is where you give them the solution. All of a sudden, they have the attention. You give them the number, then you hit them with interest. So you tell them about all the great things this project can do for them, the solution can do for them. Like if it's a mock-up, if you're CNN Plus, you tell them how much money they can make. Then you go into desire, and this is where you tell them like, um, or sorry, attention, you hit them with a big number. Interest, you tell them about all the different companies that are already doing this project or are trying to do this project, like either market entry or building this mock-up, or they've already business case studies. Then you do desire, which is that's where you tell them like this is all the stuff you can get. You sell the vacation, not the flight. You basically say like this is how much money you can make, not how they will make money. And this is how many users you can get. This is how many customers will be happier. And then you hit them with action, which is like this is what you have to do to make sure this like we did all the research, we did all the mock-ups, but this is like the extra stuff you have to get done to actually implement this into your business. And so attention, interest, desire, action, or ADA as known by copywriters. Then we have research and analysis. And so I'm going to break this apart in two. This is going to be research and this is going to be analysis. Now, quantitative is numbers. You can't fight numbers. Yes, you can fudge them up. You can say that they're different than they actually are, which you shouldn't because you will go to jail if you're breaking it. Like, if you don't know about this as a consultant, like, you can go to jail if you simply lie to the client. Some big firms get away with it, but they just fire the consultant internally. And qualitative is like interviews and sometimes even market reports can fall under this. But essentially, market reports actually can go under either because sometimes they have numbers, sometimes they are like surveys. But yeah, let's make sure we make that very clear. Surveys, and this is simply numbers. And so opinions would fall under qualitative, but surveys where you're like seeing what someone actually did would be quantitative. And it's hard to fight quantitative, but you need a little bit of qualitative because everyone falls for what is the most popular thing happening. These can be business case studies as well. And case studies are essentially just like this concept has been done by a different business in the market. That it's as simple as that. And then there's first principles, which is first principles thinking is think using frameworks. Now, I covered this in one of my videos, but some frameworks can include, you know, SWOT analysis. They can include Porter's 5 forces or McKinsey's 7S model. Essentially, it's like how are you going to break down the problem and solve small problems to get the solution to the big problem. That's literally how simple it is. And then it's like, additionally, it's about like what can you infer that is difficult to disagree with. So you sometimes need to infer, even though that's questionable at times. But like, what is undeniable? And if you stick with that, you will actually get much further in terms of thinking with first principles and actually building something that matters to people, that is spot on either right away or pretty close to being spot on. And so that's how you think with first principles. Um, think in frameworks. You break down a problem to much smaller problems. In software engineering, that's called recursion or dynamic programming. But then you solve small problems to get the solution to the big problem, and then you infer. What is undeniable? Like, what can I say right now that's like impossible to argue against, and then what can that lead me towards my problem's solution? And then that can help you go closer and closer to an inference of like a prediction for the future or a prediction for the problem. Now, that's not exactly what you give to the client, but it helps a consultant to think that way. Additionally, you want to analyze these numbers and surveys by breaking down the problem and seeing what these numbers and surveys fall into the smaller problems, and then solve those smaller problems that way. And then lastly, selling. You're selling the initial project. Even after you've sold the initial project and you've gotten it and you're making your hourly rate, you're still trying to make sure the client believes that they spent their money worthwhile. There's a buyer's regret, and that's essentially like once you buy it, you regret it, and you don't want your client to have that. As a consultant, you want to make sure they always feel great. That's why they have the lavish dinners. But you want to make sure that they at all times feel like they made the right decision. Then, just to make sure I write this correctly. Okay. Then there's future projects. Now, I covered this in a previous like PowerPoint or a previous video, but future projects is essentially like, hey, we solved one problem. There's the solution to it, but actually this causes future problem, and this future problem needs a future solution. And that's where we come in. We've already solved this problem. Why not hire us for a future problem? And this is where, you continue to make in a lot of money, because you can sell it for much higher. You can make this future problem much larger than your current project and make this a longer project, which means you bill more hours. And at the end of the day, it's a referrals business. So you're looking for one client to tell another, like, hey, they did great. You should hire them. And if they do that, basically you have an endless supply of clients. You don't have to do marketing. And if you're breaking into consulting, like you might not be selling your project, but keeping this in mind will definitely make you a top 1% consultant. Because if you can give a client such an incredible experience that they don't have buyer's regret, they all times feel that they made the right decision, and you come up with not just a solution, but as an even entry-level consultant, you come up with future problem and like a future solution, and you do such a great job that you get referrals. You not only will keep your client and bill them more hours, but you'll also get more clients. And at the end of the day, that's what makes you a top 1% consultant and a future partner. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to subscribe if you did. I make these completely free because I hope to help other people enter the consulting industry. And so, yeah, please feel free to subscribe. It'll help me a ton. Bye-bye.